series previews tonight, but some huge news out of SEC basketball. LSU hires Will Wade today. So we're going to start off with Will Wade. Sweets, I'm going to let you start us off here. And what are your thoughts? How would you grade this hire?
Well, okay, so let me start by saying, and you know this, I am not the biggest Will Wade guy. Do I like the hire? I do like the hire. I think that something had to be done. McMahon just, 4 years and it wasn't getting any better. It was time for him to go. Um, but he's certainly a polarizing figure. He will get the fan base involved. There's a lot of excited people right now, so that's a good thing. I'm just I'm excited to see him get back in there and get going.
Yeah, I'm man, I'm excited for LSU basketball. The last 4 seasons have not been what LSU Tiger fans want. Um, Will Wade had kind of restored this program to the best it had been in 15 years. John Brady in the mid 2000s took them to a Final Four in '06. But ever since John Brady's left, something's been missing. Will Wade comes in, takes them to the tournament 3 out of 5 years, would have been four if not for the COVID season. Took the LSU Tigers to a Sweet 16. Things shook out the way they did. He ends up at McNeese a couple years later, two tournament appearances, goes to NC State, leads them to a tournament. I feel like, especially for a fan base, anytime a coach gets terminated the way Will Wade did, like your fan base is gonna rally around and want a guy like that back. So, this. I mean, I don't know what the immediate expectations for fans are going to be, but I think you've got to be cautious. This is a program that had four really bad seasons in a row. So while I love the Will Wade hire, think it's going to be great. I think people with a Sweet 16 idea year one, even though basketball is a little different now, you may want to temper those expectations a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like we were going there every year when he was here before. So I mean, that's what it is. Is that a lot of people act like we were a fixture in the Sweet 16 every year with Will Wade. Hell, we made it one time, but that one time was more than we had done for a while. So it was better than the immediate past. Like I said, after the Brady years, LSU basketball became pretty thin. So I'm wondering who is going to be LSU's Mr. Aura guy. DMAC, are you up for that job? Can we get you a big purple and gold boom box and have you come strolling out with the team?
This could be the role to bring Amir to Baton Rouge from McNeese.
What about Max? What about Max?
Our buddy Max could be that guy.
He could because he's non-athletic looking. And I think we could suit him up in some purple and gold and get him some chains and you're in promotional goods. You can soup up a boom box for him, DMAC, and we can. That's got NIL written all over it.
Yeah, we could put Max in there. Man, I am so excited for the first basketball game next year. It's going to be a packed house, something we didn't have a ton of this past season here in Baton Rouge. So I'm excited, both from the hire, of course, Will Wade. I'm ecstatic about that, but also that we're going to see a little more investment in a basketball program
Right.
to, set Will Wade up for success here. That NC State had committed a lot of money. It appears LSU is probably committing more than they were willing to. So, great time for LSU sports. You've just added a new football coach. Your women's basketball team is basically Sweet 16, Elite Eight, Final Four every year under Mulkey. Baseball has won two of the last three championships, and then you bring the General Will Wade back to Baton Rouge, where he belongs. Good time to be an LSU sports fan. I know that much for our Tigers that are listening.
I'm pumped to see who he signs and who he brings in. I know it's going to be great because a lot of the basketball money people were waiting on this hire to buy back in, and their money buying back in is why he's here. So, but I'm curious to see who this brings us. What McDonald's 5 stars is going to be in purple and gold next year? DMAC, talk
Yeah,
to me.
the rumors now are the number one shooting guard, number three national player in the country is going to end up being down to SMU and LSU. LSU wasn't even on the radar for him much before today. So, the immediate impact of, being on a list for, a top five national player out of high school, it's already sort of paying dividends 6 hours into this.
And it's so huge in basketball because in basketball you need if you got that one guy, if you got the best player on the court, you've always got a chance. You look at a team like Arkansas this year. Arkansas is not deep. They don't play great defense, but Arkansas can still win a national championship, and they're still playing in the Sweet 16 because they have Darius Acuff, who is always the best player on the floor. When you got that guy, you've got a chance.
Yeah, it's a lot different than football. One guy in football doesn't make a team on a basketball court. You think of, some of the runs Michael Jordan had. You probably, as a big sports fan, can name some of the supporting cast, but how many regular average Joes could name, Dennis Rodman, Scottie Pippen, guys like that? And then you think,
Kerr, Bill Wennington, guys like that.
you think of the early Cavaliers days in LeBron's career. you know, Most people probably cannot name three of his Cavaliers teammates.
My
Um,
favorite Cavalier of all time, Delonte West. You remember him?
yeah.
Wonder what he's up to nowadays, boy. That'd be a good guest to have on the show.
Well, I think, big news for the SEC, big news for LSU, another high end competitive coach into the SEC. What's going to separate a lot of these teams is the financial commitment now. You've got a dozen really good coaches in the SEC. So, yeah, I'm excited for hoop season. But first, got to cover some baseball and then get to football season in August, September before we jump to hoops. So, with a little SEC baseball this weekend, really big really big series, Oklahoma and Texas. They're actually probably just had first pitch about 10 minutes ago on a Thursday night game. This game tonight really intrigues me. You're going to have Ruger Riojas on the mound for Texas, and then LJ Mercurius for Oklahoma moves from the Saturday role to the Friday, which is really Thursday role this week to square off against Texas. And we looked at stats earlier in the week. Texas leads the number two in the league in team ERA. Phenomenal weekend rotation with Ruger Riojas, Luke Harrison, who was their Friday night guy last year, and then Volantis as well, who would probably be a Friday night guy at there's 290 D1 baseball programs, probably about 275 of them. He
At
could be
least.
the Friday night guy. So this pitching staff phenomenal. But Oklahoma's off to a really strong season too, number 8 in the country, 4-2 in SEC play. They've won both of their series to get started. And LJ Mercurius has been phenomenal on the mound. They've got guys like Brendan Brock, Camden Johnson, who are hitting the ball really well right now. So for me, this series is gonna come down to the pitching staffs. Which starting pitchers can go the longest? Oklahoma's bullpen has been a little shaky. The bad news for Oklahoma is when you get into the Texas bullpen, it does not get much easier. Thomas Burns has been great. Sam Kozart's been great. Michael Winter. They've just got a lot of guys who are playing really good baseball now. So I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to take Texas to get 2 out of 3. I like them tonight and I like them on Saturday. Tomorrow, Cam Johnson's going to pitch for Oklahoma. He has struggled with throwing it over the plate so far in SEC play, but I do feel like this Oklahoma team can maximize hitting the ball on Luke Harrison a little more than the opening night guy and the end of the series guy for Texas. So give me Texas 2 out of 3. What are your thoughts, Sweets?
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Texas to win the series. I actually think Texas gets a sweep. I just think that they're too much across the board for Oklahoma. And like you said, with Johnson having trouble throwing strikes in SEC play, that's really going to hurt them tomorrow. If he gives up free bases, you can't give up free bags to a team like Texas because they're going to make you pay for them. And like you said, if they can get you deep, their bullpen is just as strong as their starting staff is. So, I just like Texas in a sweep this week, and I really feel like Texas is that good, and they're hitting all there. And listen, Oklahoma's great; they've won their first 2 series, so it's not like these guys are playing bad ball. I just really think Texas is that good right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And this is kind of a rivalry weekend. This weekend in SEC baseball, we talk OU Texas, and we're gonna move around, stick with another rivalry game this weekend, and talk a little Auburn, Alabama baseball. There may not be two fan bases in the country that hate each other as much as these guys do in the state of Alabama. A lot of family feuds with these two teams. Brothers, sisters, cousins, husbands, wives, even in the state of Alabama,
Husband, wife, sister,
graduating.
brothers too. They have a few of those in Alabama.
Yeah. So,
Welcome to the South.
talking about these two teams, I'll let you go with these two first, Sweets, if you want.
First of all, great matchup this weekend. Tyler Fay coming off of his no hitter, facing Jake Marciano, who, we just talked about Texas and all of their great pitching. Hell, Marciano has been as good as anybody in the country so far, including these Texas pitchers. So the SEC is just loaded with baseball talent. I really like I like Auburn to get the series at least 2-1, if not in a sweep this weekend. I think Auburn is just better across the board. They're better pitching, better hitting. The one thing Alabama does have is they do have the best hitter or the best player on the field in LeBron. But after that, it's all Auburn. I like Auburn to go ahead and get a sweep this weekend. DMAC, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like Auburn to definitely win the series. Traveling to Tuscaloosa had me a little hesitant to take the sweep, but I'm going to give them a sweep here too. You mentioned Jake Marciano, a 1 ERA, 51 punch outs to only 4 walks through 36 innings. I think when we talk pitching, we saw Tyler Fay have a phenomenal game. We haven't really seen Zane Adams step up as much as most Bama fans would like. Miles Upchurch is another guy, true freshman, really talented guy, but I may just not be ready to face a lineup like Auburn. Then you look at the bats. You mentioned Justin LeBron. Probably definitely a favorite for SEC Player of the Year, likely a top 3 pick in this year's draft. My biggest surprise for this Auburn or this Alabama team is their senior catcher, Brady Neal, a guy who started out at LSU. Wasn't sure if he was coming back to Alabama, may have tested the MLB draft, ends up back at Bama. The biggest knock on him has always been the bat since he got to a college campus. Well, he's leading the team with a 366 batting average, 5 home runs, 31 RBIs, really hitting the ball well. And then you look over at this Auburn team, they have 6 guys all hitting over 313. Bristol Carter's played a lot of center field. He's hitting 388. He has been kind of in and out of the lineup, dealing with some lingering injuries the last week and a half. So I'm eager to see if he's going to play all weekend. Chris Rembert, who's another strong candidate for SEC Player of the Year, is back healthy, playing again, and he's hitting 353 with a couple home runs. Chase Fralick, a sophomore catcher, has been really good, hitting 348 with 5 home runs. This Auburn team is one of the best they've had in a really long time. Excited to continue to watch them play, especially with their conference leading team ERA this year, edging out Texas barely, even after losing a series to Texas last weekend. So, I'm gonna go with a sweep just like you here. So we're gonna bounce over to yet another rivalry series. That's gonna be the Mississippi State Bulldogs and the Ole Miss Rebels going to Oxford, Mississippi, everybody's least favorite place on earth. It seems like where dreams may go to die a little bit. But I do like Mike Bianco, their coach, a lot. Um, for Ole Miss, their pitching staff's been pretty good. Hunter Elliott was SEC Pitcher of the Year last year. He is back. 3-0 on the season, 3.4 ERA. His walk total's a little higher than I think he would like. 31 innings, 44 punch outs, and 20 walks. But guys are only hitting 194 against him. Cade Townsend, who started off as their Saturday pitcher, has looked electric, but he missed last week's start with an injury. So interesting to see who is going to fill in this week. They've got a few options there, and then Will Libbert, the transfer from Missouri, has struggled a little bit early, 6.41 ERA. But they do a lot of their damage with the bats. You got Tristan Bassetta hitting 384 with 14 home runs, 38 RBIs. Judd Utermark hitting 312 with 10 home runs, 26 RBIs. Colin Reuters hitting 329. Those are the only three guys they have hitting over the 300 mark. So they need big performances from those guys. Then you look at the Mississippi State Bulldogs, 21-4 overall, 4-2 in SEC. Their two non-conference losses were a late night game that went into the ninth against UCLA and a road game at Southern Miss. And they got a little revenge after losing that Southern Miss game, and big win over them on Tuesday. Their whole pitching staff has been really good. Thomas Valanis, 1.04 ERA, 47 punch outs in 34 innings. McPherson, who is also a little banged up right now, 2.45 ERA. Duke Stones looked good at times. But where they do a really good job is at the plate. Bryce Chance, 452 batting average, 10 doubles on the season. Noah Sullivan, 386. I mean, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 guys hitting over 300. Some of those guys are role players, but they're leading the conference in batting average, and these guys are really good. I'm going to take the Bulldogs to go 2 out of 3 on the road in Oxford, and get 2 big wins over Ole Miss. What are your thoughts on this series?
I'm gonna go the same. I like Mississippi State to take 2 out of 3, and I'd pick them to sweep, but Ryan McPherson is supposed to miss his start this weekend with a forearm strain, so Mississippi State's pitching staff's going to be stretched a little bit this weekend. So that's my reasoning for giving Ole Miss one game, because honestly, I think Mississippi State is a much better team. I just think with this pitching staff being a little stretched right now, I think it'll allow Ole Miss to sneak one from them. The one thing I'd like to see from Ole Miss is definitely more consistent hitting. I know Bianco wants to get these guys on base and try to get them moved over and stuff. But I mean, you got to get on base. You got to put the bat on the ball, and you need to be on the sack in order to do that. And if you're striking out and you got a bunch of guys hitting in the 200s, then you're probably not going to score a lot of runs. That's where Ole Miss is hurting against a team like Mississippi State this weekend. So I like Mississippi State to take 2 out of 3, and they're playing fantastic ball. They're still, I think Mississippi State's another team top 5 in the country, and just really really stacked. Just got to stay healthy.
Yeah, that's going to bring us to the South Carolina Georgia series at Foley Field. What are your thoughts on this one?
Love this series here. Georgia's coming home to play at Foley, the little bandbox, the baseball field that could is what my daughter said some of the Georgia students call it, and I'm not sure why they call it that. I guess because everybody can hit a home run there, so it makes them all feel good about the place. I like Georgia to sweep South Carolina this weekend. South Carolina had a coaching change with Coach Maneri being shown the door Saturday morning. I just think Georgia's a much better team. They're better pitching, better hitting, better fielding, better coaching. They're just better. They're hitting the ball well. Joey Volchko 4-0 with a 4.23 ERA is going for him Friday night. Dylan Veig, who's been fantastic, is now their number 2 guy going on Saturdays. He's 3-1 with a 2.3 ERA, and I believe Kenny Ishikawa, who's back from injury now, will be their Sunday guy. And he's 1-1 with a 9.35 ERA, but he was banged up a little early this year, so that 9.35 ERA is a little bit not as telling as he's really not that bad. I just think that Georgia's too much for South Carolina, honestly. Georgia's hitting the ball well, and they're getting stronger as the season's gone on. So give me Georgia in a sweep, and I think it's going to be ugly. I see three beatdowns. D-Mac?
Yeah, more than this starting pitching rotation for Georgia, which is great. I really love Justin Bird, Matt Scott, and Cade Nako. Those guys out of the bullpen have been phenomenal. They've thrown 23, 17, and 24 innings, respectively, and all have 25 plus punch outs. Wes Johnson has this pitching staff working well this year. We've talked in a few of these series, potential player of the year awards or SEC player of the year. One guy we've got to mention is Daniel Jackson. I remember watching him play against LSU a couple years back as a freshman when he was at Wofford. He was phenomenal in that North Carolina regional. He's hitting just an easy 402 with 15 home runs and 39 RBIs right now. He is really good. To turn the page over to South Carolina for a second, their weekend pitching staff has not been that bad, especially now that they've got Amp Phillips, Josh Gunther, and Brandon Stone as the rotation. Amp Phillips is sitting at a 2.32 ERA. Guys are only hitting 193 on him. And then their bats are where the problem lie. They've got one guy hitting over 300, and that's true freshman Will Craddock. whose numbers have dropped off a little bit in SEC play. KJ Scobie, a guy a lot of people were excited about, made the transition to shortstop. He's the next closest to 300 at 292. And then after that, you've got a handful of guys hitting 270. So they're going to need their bats to come alive. I'm going to take Georgia to win 2 out of 3. I think there's a little renewed energy around this South Carolina program with Monty Lee leading the charge. I also expect a guy like Talmadge LaCroix, their catcher, to start to play a little bit better. They're removing the pitch calling from him. Coach Rooney is going to start as assuming that role again. So that should alleviate a little bit of the stress from their catcher. But again, this Georgia team is just too good to not win this series. A sweep wouldn't surprise me, but I've got to give the Gamecocks one. So that,
D-Mac, you made a good point about a new coach coming in and bringing a little bit of different fire, and it kind of you rally the troops. And um, that being said, the Georgia troops are just better than the South Carolina troops. So
yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if South Carolina got a game. I would be surprised if South Carolina won the series, but I think Georgia's just too much for them. They're pitching well, like you said. Their bullpen's been fantastic. They're just hitting on all cylinders right now. So
yeah, I
give me the
couldn't
Bucks.
agree more. That's going to take us to the Florida Arkansas series. Florida got a sweep opening weekend of SEC play, got swept last week. Their pitching staff has been good. Aiden King, he's got a 1.27 ERA, 30 punch outs in 28 innings. Liam Peterson, who got off to a rocky start at the beginning of the year, has settled in 48 punch outs in 30 innings. This is a really good pitching staff for Florida that hasn't fully reached its potential yet, but they're also a team that's struggling at the plate. Brendan Lawson has been good, hitting 370 with 10 bombs, 29 RBIs. Blake Sear, who's been in and out of the lineup, dealing with some injuries, has been good. Kyle Jones, their center fielder. Ethan Surawick has looked good, but outside of that, just not a lot of good at bats from this Florida team. Then you flip over to Arkansas, who, opening weekend of the year, they lost to TCU. Um, and then, they lost a midweek to Arkansas State, lost a weekend game to UT Arlington, got beat 2 out of 4 by Stetson, but have looked much improved. They took 2 out of 3 against Mississippi State, and the bats are definitely alive for this team. Damian Ruiz is hitting 358, couple home runs. Cam Kozel has 7 home runs, hitting 354. They transitioned him to shortstop recently. Ryder Helfrich's a guy who's hitting over 300. Kui Aloy is a guy who's hitting about 275, but has, battled some injuries early on. Same with TJ Pompey and Nolan Souza. These are guys that are getting healthy at the right time, and their pitching staff is really good. Colin Fisher has 38 punch outs through 30 innings. Gabe Gackles got a 2.87 ERA. Hunter Dietz has a 3.8 ERA and has continued to look better each week. He's got 54 punch outs in 30 innings. And then their bullpen's good. You've got Tate McGuire, Ethan McElvin, Cole Gibbler, who's been phenomenal. So they're a really talented team who's playing really good baseball right now. This game is in Fayetteville, and this is going to be my first pick for a sweep this weekend. Give me the Razorbacks taking 3 out of 3 this weekend, getting the brooms out on Sunday, and sending the Gators back to Gainesville. What are your thoughts, Sweets?
I mean, it's tough to bet against. They're 27-1 at home this year, so they've been sweeping a lot of people at home. So that's not a bad bet to make. You know, they're in fantastic shape right now with Koziel, Aloy. You know, Stewart's hitting the hell out of the ball right now. The pitching staff is fantastic. Starters and the bullpen. You know, Van Horn's just got him. You know, got him playing great ball right now. But it's March. You know, so Arkansas is usually pretty good in March. It's June when they have trouble coming around. But I'll digress. I like Arkansas to win the series as well. God, 27-1 at home. You know what? I think Florida's going to get one game from. So you know, I guess that's a little bit of a bold prediction, being that they're not themselves this year, and Arkansas is almost perfect at home. So give me Arkansas taking 2 out of 3 from the Gators this weekend, and you know they'll stay in the top 5 and keep it rolling. Arkansas is going to be there at the end of the year this year. This really good. They may get off the schneid finally this year.
Yeah, well, that's going to take us to Como, Columbia, Missouri, where the Missouri Tigers host the Texas A&M Aggies, who, even though they're 2-4 in SEC play, the Aggies are still ranked in the top 25. Sweets, get us started on this one.
Yeah, so Texas A&M got some bad news in their bullpen. Veteran right-hander Josh Stewart has been ruled out for the rest of the year after suffering an arm injury warming up against Oklahoma last weekend. So that's really going to hurt them. That goes along with losing Caden McCoy before the season to Tommy John surgery. Right now, Texas A&M ranks in the top 10 nationally for on-base percentage at 8 with 459, slugging at 9th, and in 10th in home runs. Missouri counters with a team batting average of 297 and a team whip of 1.37 here. Missouri's an improved baseball team. Mizzou is not somebody who is synonymous with baseball, especially in the SEC. Because the SEC is so stacked deep, you know, deep teams and stuff. But they've been good this year. Tyler Macon's been fantastic. Javen Pimentel has done a great job coming back from injury. He's got a 3 what was that ERA there? All right, I can't see that. I'm sorry, lose my sight. But yeah, so Mizzou's not playing bad ball this year. I like Texas A&M to win the series. I think Mizzou will get one of the 3 though. Go ahead and give me Texas 2-1, and they'll take the first 2 and lose the third game. DMAC?
Yeah, you know, this Texas A&M team, you know, you're already hearing rumblings about a coaching change. At the end of the season, if things got bad, what's to stop the Aggies from making a mid-season change? You know, on offense, they are heavily dependent on Caden Sorrell. You know, he's got 12 home runs, 39 RBIs, hitting 386. Jake Dewar's been phenomenal this season in left field. Gavin Grahovic, you know, hitting 348. The 2 biggest surprises for me are the 2 freshmen, Boston Kellner playing short and Nico Partita playing third base. Partita's hitting 341, Kellner's hitting 396. These are guys who are true freshmen handling the left side of the infield in the SEC and either hitting over 300 or, you know, basically one base hit away from hitting 300. So they've been a huge surprise for me. You've got guys like Wesley Jordan and Chris Hakopian who are getting healthy for A&M. Man, this is an A&M team that I just don't have a lot of faith in right now. And then you look over at this Missouri team. You know, Caden Pierre is back in the lineup. He's hitting 354, playing center field. Cam Durnan is hitting 275. He's back in the lineup. You look at Chase Wyota, Tyler Macon, Cameron Benson, Pierre Sills, all guys hitting, you know, 320 to 380 on the year. Not a ton of power anywhere on this team. Woda leads them with 4 home runs. But the thing that sticks out to me most about this Missouri team is the move they made this offseason, bringing in Drew Dickinson as the pitching coach, who had a ton of success on that Virginia staff, coaching staff for a lot of years. You look at Javen Pimentel, you've got Brady, Kalen Brink, Josh McDevitt, you know, going into third week of SEC play, their entire rotation had over an 8 ERA. The highest is a 4.9, and in SEC play, Brady Kalen Brink is pitching a lot better than that. Kalen Brink has 47 punch outs in 33 innings. I don't know how long it took for a Missouri pitcher to record 47 punch outs last year. So even though they are only 1-5 in the SEC, I made a bold prediction that they were going to take 2 out of 3 against Tennessee. They won the first game, played a couple of other close games that weekend, could not get it done. But to me, this is their weekend at home against a kind of banged up a little bit Texas A&M staff, Texas A&M team that doesn't have a ton of confidence. Give me the Missouri Tigers to take 2 out of 3 at home this weekend, and
I
that would put them at 3-6 in the SEC, which would be moving in the right direction in a big way. So we've got 2 more series to talk about. We're going to go with another rivalry game here. We're going to go with the Tennessee Volunteers and the Vandy Commodores square off in Nashville. Tennessee is another team that's 3-3 in the SEC. They are number 21 in the nation. So get us started on this game.
Yeah, so Josh Allender's starting to come around at Tennessee this season. He's got him at 3-3. They're starting to come around, hitting the ball a little better. The pitching, they're not very happy with their pitching up on Rocky Top right now. I know when my wife complains about it that it's really bad. So they're not happy with the pitching right now, but that should come around as well. Sophomore Tegan Coons has been fantastic, but they're actually they're moving him out of the rotation this weekend, which was odd to me. Is That's what the report says here. That they're going to go with Brandon Arvidsson on Friday night, Landon Mack on Saturday, and Evan Blanco on Sunday. Wow. I didn't see anything about that. Did you see that before, D-Mac?
Yeah, I saw SEC Baseball tweeted that, and I know real quick before we go deeper, you guys have Tegan Coons on.
Yeah, I know.
So I have Cooper Moore, who's injured. So Brandon Arvidsson moved into my starting lineup as a relief pitcher and gets the Friday night nod. So good week for me.
Well, how fortunate for you. Anyway, back to the series. The fantasy talk serious stuff though. I like Tennessee to win the series. Vanderbilt's just not been themselves this year. They started slow, and I thought that they would come around. They're just not coming around. They're not hitting the ball well. Their pitching is so, and Connor Fennell, who's their All American guy, he hasn't even been that consistent for them this year. So I'm going to go ahead and take Tennessee to get 2 out of 3 this weekend. They're just driving across state to Nashville. I think they go ahead and handle their business there. 2 out of 3. Give me Tennessee 2 out of 3. D-Mac.
Yeah, this Vanderbilt team, Austin Nye, who was their Saturday pitcher, made 3 starts, 10 innings this season. He got hurt. He's due back soon. He's a guy who has still not given up a earned run through his 10 innings. Connor Fennell has not been what everybody expected him to be this year. And then you look at the bats. One thing I will say is they have a little bit more power this year than I feel like a normal Vanderbilt team does. But they also have a lot more swing and miss. You get Mike Mancini, Brody Johnston, Braden Holcomb, Logan Johnstone, and Tommy Gooden, who all have at least 6 home runs. Holcomb leading the way with 11. They've got Colin Barsky back, who played catcher, got hurt, but he hit 3 home runs opening night for them in Arlington. So if they can get him going, I think there's still some time. Well, there's plenty of time for them to fix their season. But I'm with you. It doesn't start this weekend. I'm going to take Tennessee 2 out of 3. Um, and it would not surprise me if they got a sweep in Nashville this weekend. So that is going to bring us to our last weekend series. It's going to be the Kentucky Wildcats traveling to Alex Box, Skip Bertman Field to square off against the defending champion LSU Tigers. Yeah,
Finishing off this rivalry weekend, I might add this
yeah.
big rivalry here.
As Kentucky is okay. Kentucky is ranked now number 19, 20-4 on this season. What surprises me the most is they've had a bunch of guys who have at least 2 home runs. A lot of times you don't see that in a season from Kentucky. Hudson Brown, their first baseman's leading the way, hitting 390 with 22 RBIs, 2 home runs. Ethan Hindle has 6 home runs. You got Chase Thurnish, who's had 3 home runs. He's hitting 347. Luke Lawrence is hitting 341. You do have Tyler Bell back in the lineup, who's hitting 355. He's still in a DH role, but he should be back in the infield soon. And you've got, third base has been the biggest question mark for me this year with the team. So I'm eager to see. Luke Lawrence has been playing shortstop for him. When Tyler Bell's good to go, I think you'll see either Ethan Hindle or Luke Lawrence move over to third base. And then you look at their pitching staff, Jackson Jelkin has been really good. He's 5-0 with a 2.9 ERA. 37 strikeouts to 8 walks. Nate Harris, 28 strikeouts to 12 walks. He's 3-1. The biggest surprise to me right now is a guy in Ben Cleaver who the ERA is not bad, 2.45, but through 6 starts, he's only thrown 18 and a third innings. He seems to be on a pitch count every week. And then you look over at this LSU lineup, Jake Brown, another guy who's got to be in contention for SEC Player of the Year, batting 376 with 11 home runs, 39 RBIs. You've got Derek Curiel, who's hitting 327 on the year, playing center field. And then after you get past those two guys, the batting averages drop significantly. You've got Zach York, who's got 6 home runs, who's hitting 275. Trent Caraway at 265 is next up, and it just continues to dwindle down from there. On the pitching front, you've got William Schmidt, who has looked electric. 3-1 with a 3.3 ERA, 46 punch outs in 30 innings. Kason Evans, the Friday night guy, 50 punch outs in 30 innings. And then Cooper Moore, who's going to be out for an extended time, 3.3 ERA, 39 punch outs, only 7 walks. My biggest question is who's going to step into a starting role here. You've got some candidates and a guy like Gavin Guidry, Jaden Newt, Zach Cowan are all guys, even Cooper Williams, that I could see stepping into a Sunday role. It has been announced that Kaysen will stay Friday. William Schmidt is moving up to Saturday this week. At some point, this LSU team has too much talent not to turn it around. So I'm gonna go with the home team here to take 2 out of 3 and start to right the ship a little bit. What are your thoughts on this one, Sweets?
I'm with you. LSU's got to win a series, and they got to do it now. That it really hurts losing more, and it sounds like moving Schmidt up Saturday that Jay looks like he's hoping that they go long, go deep into the games Friday and Saturday, and then he could just go, pitch by committee on Sunday. Just empty the pen day and see what you can do. Obviously a lot of that will depend on what happens the two prior days, but LSU has got to do a better job of putting the bat on the ball when guys are on base, especially guys like York, Darden, guys like that. Those guys have got to get on base and they've got to hit the damn ball. These strikeouts, it's killing the team, and got to get better. As far as going against a team like Kentucky goes, you can't give these guys free bags because they'll swipe bases too. Kentucky, I want to say they lead the country in steals, if not they're second. But we got to keep these guys off the base pads, and if they do get on, they're going to be running. So we need a great job behind the plate as well. I like LSU to win the series 2-1. Don't ask me why. Just got a feeling, like you said, too much talent not to turn it around. And it's not like even with Moore being out, that we don't have plenty of talented guys that can close the show for us on Sunday. It's just a matter of getting in there and doing it. So, just got to see guys putting the bat on the ball.
Yeah, what are you most excited for this weekend in SEC baseball?
The most excited thing, I honestly think that the Texas Oklahoma series will be, that ought to be a lot of fun to watch. Oklahoma's been a lot better. You guys were on them early. I wasn't as sold as you guys were, but I got to give the devil their due. They look that good right now. That should be a really fun series. It'd be really fun if Oklahoma took a couple from Texas and mixed it up a little bit. What are your thoughts? What's your big thing for the weekend, SEC baseball?
Yeah, I just pulled up the stats here on this one. Bottom of the third, and um, let's see, Texas is up 6-0 right now. Borba just doubled to left center to score two. Um, so let me see. Is Mercurius is still in? I would think there's no outs in the bottom of the third. Know how long he's gonna go. So that was the
Wow.
yeah, that was the pitching matchup I was most excited to see was Mercurius and Ruger Riojas this week. Right now, still a lot of baseball left. I mean, you're in the bottom of the third, but Texas definitely looking good. I One other thing that I really want to see is, you look at a team like Florida, who we both picked to lose the series. I picked them to get swept. They got rocked by Alabama last week. I want to see if they show any fight this week. Even if they get swept, if they lose three close games, I leave with a better impression of this Florida team than I had going into this week. So that would probably be, outside of this Oklahoma Texas series, what I'm most eager to see.
I'd also like to see, from just a selfish standpoint, I'd really like to see LSU, come through in some clutch situations. I mean, just they're good enough to do it. It's just time to do it. Got to put the bat on the ball.
Yeah, this is the weekend for the Tigers to do it. So that is going to be a wrap for Southern Sports Gumbo tonight. Remember, you've got some Sweet 16 games going on right now. Got more Sweet 16 tomorrow. I know we will probably be live at some point over the next 72 to 96 hours talking college basketball. Maybe even a little more baseball, depending on time and what happens. We got to talk a little hoops tonight with Will Wade coming back to where he belongs in Baton Rouge. So that is
returned. The general has returned.
The general has returned. So that is going to be a wrap for Southern Sports Gumbo tonight. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your mom, tell everybody you know about us, and we will see you soon.